Fear is a shadow that follows us everywhere, whispering doubts, feeding insecurities, and holding us back from the life we truly desire. But what if the key to true freedom lies not in fighting fear, but in understanding and letting it go? Seedling in this video will explore the profound truth behind the quote, "Let go of fear and you will find freedom." Through 6 powerful insights, you'll learn how to break free from the chains of fear, embrace courage, and discover the inner strength that has been within you all along. Stay with me until the end, and together, let's step into a life of clarity, peace, and unshakable freedom. Fear is the root of limitation. Fear is one of the most powerful emotions in the human experience, shaping our decisions, thoughts, and behaviors. It can be both a natural survival instinct and a mental prison that prevents us from living fully. While fear once served an evolutionary purpose, protecting our ancestors from physical danger, it often manifests today in ways that are more psychological than physical. Instead of protecting us, fear now limits us. It becomes an invisible barrier, stopping us from chasing our dreams, forming deep relationships, or discovering our true potential. At its core, fear is an illusion created by the mind. Most of the fears we experience are not rooted in actual danger, but rather in imagined scenarios and what-ifs. For example, the fear of failure may stop someone from starting a business, or the fear of rejection might prevent a person from expressing love or speaking their truth. These fears live in our minds, feeding on uncertainty and self-doubt. They create a false sense of safety by convincing us to stay in our comfort zones. When we allow fear to dictate our choices, we unconsciously build walls around ourselves. These walls may feel protective at first, but over time they become prisons. Imagine someone who is terrified of public speaking. To avoid this fear, they might refuse opportunities that involve speaking, even if those opportunities could lead to personal growth or success. Each time they give in to fear, the prison walls grow stronger and the individual's world grows smaller. Eventually, life becomes defined not by freedom and possibility, but by avoidance and limitation. Fear is also deeply connected to the ego, the part of us that seeks control, safety, and identity. The ego thrives on fear because it uses it to keep us attached to the familiar. Even if our current situation is uncomfortable or unfulfilling, fear convinces us to stay because it whispers, "Oh, what if something worse happens?" This fear of the unknown traps us in cycles of stagnation. Growth requires change, and change requires stepping into uncertainty. Fear, therefore, becomes the single greatest obstacle to transformation. The effects of fear extend to every aspect of life. In relationships, fear might manifest as jealousy, insecurity, or an inability to be vulnerable. In careers, it might appear as procrastination, hesitation to take risks, or settling for less than you deserve. In spirituality, fear blocks connection to inner peace because it keeps the mind restless and reactive. Essentially, fear keeps you from living authentically. It silences your inner voice and drowns out your intuition, replacing them with doubt and anxiety. The good news is that fear loses its power when you bring awareness to it. The first step in overcoming fear is to recognize it for what it truly is, a creation of the mind. Begin by observing your fears without judgment. Instead of saying, "I am afraid," shift your perspective to, "There is fear in my mind right now." Right now. This small change creates distance between you and the emotion, allowing you to see that you are not your fear. You are the observer of it. When you view fear through the lens of awareness, it begins to dissolve. You realize that most of the things you are afraid of will never actually happen. Even when challenges do arise, they are rarely as catastrophic as the mind imagined them to be. By shining the light of awareness on fear, you weaken its grip and reclaim your inner power. Ultimately, fear is the root of limitation because it convinces you to live small, safe, and unseen. Letting go of fear does not mean recklessly ignoring danger. It means refusing to let imagined dangers control your life. When you free yourself from fear, you open the door to growth, opportunity, and true freedom. It is only by confronting fear that you can step into the fullness of who you are meant to be. Seedling acceptance is the first step to liberation. One of the most profound truths in life is that you cannot overcome what you refuse to face. Fear, pain, anger, and suffering grow stronger when they are ignored, denied, or resisted. When you fight against your inner struggles, you unknowingly give them more energy and control over your life. This is why acceptance is the first and most crucial step toward liberation and freedom. Most people misunderstand acceptance. They think acceptance means giving up, being passive, or agreeing with a negative situation. But true acceptance is none of these. It does not mean you like what is happening or that you condone harmful behavior. Instead, acceptance is about acknowledging reality as it is, without judgment or resistance. It is saying to yourself, "You right now, this is what is happening. I may not like it, but I will face it honestly." When fear arises, the natural reaction is to push it away. We distract ourselves, numb the feeling, or try to control external circumstances to make the fear disappear. For example, someone who fears failure might avoid opportunities altogether to prevent the possibility of failure. Someone who fears rejection may hide their true feelings or avoid relationships entirely. In both cases, fear wins because the person is refusing to face it. This resistance traps them in a cycle of avoidance and suffering. Acceptance breaks this cycle. When you accept fear, you bring it into the light of awareness. You stop running and instead turn toward the very thing you have been avoiding. Imagine standing in a dark room filled with shadows. It seemed terrifying, monsters lurking in every corner. But when you turn on the light, you see that they are only harmless shapes. Acceptance works the same way. By shining the light of awareness on fear, you realize that much of its power comes from your resistance to it. This process begins with self-compassion. Many people judge themselves harshly for feeling afraid. They think, "I shouldn't feel this way," or "I'm weak for having these fears." But judgment only deepens suffering. Instead, try to approach yourself with kindness and understanding. Say to yourself, "It's okay to feel fear. Fear is part of being human." This gentle acceptance creates space for healing and transformation. Once you accept your fear, you can begin to understand it. Often, fear has valuable messages to share. It may be pointing to a past wound that needs healing or revealing a belief that no longer serves you. For instance, someone who fears speaking in public might uncover a childhood memory of being shamed for expressing themselves. By facing this memory with acceptance, they can begin to heal and release the fear that has held them back for years. Acceptance also brings peace because it aligns you with the present moment. Fear thrives on the past and the future. It says, "I remember when you failed," or "What if you fail again tomorrow?" These thoughts pull you away from the here and now. When you accept the present moment as it is, fear loses its grip. You realize that in this exact moment you are safe and most of the threats exist only in the mind. The path to liberation begins with this simple yet powerful truth. You cannot change what you do not first accept. Acceptance does not mean you stop growing or striving for better. In fact, it is the foundation for lasting change. When you see reality clearly, without denial or distortion, you gain the clarity and strength needed to move forward. Ultimately, acceptance is an act of courage. It takes bravery to look directly at your fears, your pain, and your inner shadows. But by doing so, you take the first step toward freedom. With acceptance, you stop fighting against life and begin to flow with it. You discover that liberation is not found in controlling the external world, but in finding peace within yourself. Courage transforms fear into strength. Fear is a universal human experience. Everyone feels it at some point, whether it's fear of failure, rejection, loss, or the unknown. Fear itself is not the problem. The way we respond to it determines whether it limits us or empowers us. This is where courage comes in. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the conscious choice to move forward despite fear. In fact, without fear, there would be no need for courage at all. Many people mistakenly believe they must eliminate fear before they can take action. They wait for the day when they finally feel ready or confident. But the truth is that day rarely comes. Fear doesn't simply disappear on its own. It fades only when you take courageous steps toward the very thing you are afraid of. In other words, action comes before confidence, and courage is what bridges the gap. Courage begins with a simple decision. I will not let fear control me. This decision does not magically erase fear, but it shifts the balance of power. Instead of being paralyzed by fear, you acknowledge it and move forward anyway. This single choice can change the entire course of your life. For instance, imagine someone terrified of public speaking. The fear might never fully go away, but by choosing to speak in front of a small group, then a larger one, They gradually build strength and resilience. Each act of courage weakens fear's grip and strengthens self-trust. The beautiful thing about courage is that it transforms fear into strength. When you face what you once ran from, you gain a sense of empowerment. You begin to realize that fear was never as powerful as it seemed. What once felt impossible becomes manageable, and what was once terrifying becomes a source of comfort. Every time you act with courage, you are proving to yourself that you are stronger than you think. Courage also shifts your perspective on failure. Fear often whispers, if you fail, it will be unbearable. This belief keeps people stuck in their comfort zone. But courage teaches you that failure is not the end. It is simply a lesson. When you dare to take risks, you may fall, but you also grow. Failure becomes a stepping stone rather than a wall. Over time, you realize that the real danger is not failure itself, but the regret of never trying. Another powerful aspect of courage is that it inspires others. When you live courageously, you give silent permission for others to do the same. Consider leaders like Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., or even everyday heroes who face personal challenges with bravery. Their courage ignites courage in those around them, creating a ripple effect of strength and resilience. In this way, your individual acts of courage can have a far-reaching impact, even beyond what you can see. Courage is not about recklessness or blind action. True courage comes from inner clarity and mindfulness. It involves feeling fear, pausing to understand it, and then choosing to act from a place of intention rather than reaction. This mindful approach ensures that your courage is grounded, wise, and purposeful. Building courage takes practice. Start small by facing minor fears, a difficult conversation, setting a boundary, or trying something new. Each time you step outside your comfort zone, you expand it. Over time, what once felt terrifying becomes normal. This gradual process builds unshakable inner strength. Ultimately, courage is the key that unlocks freedom. Fear will always exist, but it doesn't have to rule your life. When you consistently choose courage, fear transforms from a prison into a teacher. It shows you where you need to grow, where your deepest desires lie, and where your greatest potential waits to be discovered. By turning toward fear instead of away from it, you reclaim your power. You learn that true strength is not found in avoiding discomfort, but in embracing it. And in doing so, you set yourself free to one courageous step at a time. Seedling freedom comes from trusting the process. One of the greatest sources of fear and suffering comes from our deep need to control everything. As human beings, we often believe that if we can plan, predict, and manage every detail of life, we will feel safe. We create expectations about how things should unfold, and when reality doesn't match our expectations, we experience anxiety, frustration, and disappointment. This constant struggle for control keeps us trapped in fear. True freedom begins the moment you let go of the need to control outcomes and start trusting the process of life. Trusting the process means understanding that life is a flow of events, some within your control and many beyond it. It's about having faith that even when things don't go according to your plans, they are still unfolding in a way that ultimately serves your growth and well-being. When you try to control everything, you are constantly living in a state of tension. Your mind is always racing. What if this goes wrong? Or how can I prevent that from happening? This mental struggle drains your energy and steals your peace. The truth is, no matter how hard you try, you cannot control every aspect of life. People will act in ways you don't expect, circumstances will change, and challenges will arise. By resisting this natural flow, you create unnecessary suffering for yourself. Trusting the process doesn't mean sitting back and doing nothing. It's not about being passive or careless. Instead, it means doing your best in each moment, making wise decisions, and then releasing attachment to the results. This approach brings peace because you recognize that once you've taken action, the outcome is no longer entirely in your hands. It's like planting a seed. You can water it, give it sunlight, and care for it, but you cannot force it to grow faster. You have to trust nature to do its work. One of the main reasons people struggle to trust the process is fear of the unknown. The mind craves certainty, and when the future feels uncertain, fear arises. But life, by its very nature, is uncertain. No one knows exactly what tomorrow will bring. When you resist this uncertainty, you become anxious and restless. When you embrace it, you experience freedom. You begin to see uncertainty not as something to fear, but as a space filled with infinite possibilities. Think about times in your life when something unexpected happened. Perhaps you lost a job, ended a relationship, or faced a major setback. In the moment, it may have felt like everything was falling apart. But later, you may have realized that those experiences led to new opportunities or personal growth you couldn't have imagined at the time. This is the magic of trusting the process. Even when you cannot see the bigger picture, life is always guiding you towards something meaningful. Practicing trust requires patience and faith. It means staying present and focused on what you can do right now without obsessing over what you can't control. Meditation, mindfulness, and deep breathing are powerful tools for cultivating this trust. They help quiet the mind and bring you back to the present moment where peace exists. Another important aspect of trust is self-trust. Often we doubt our ability to handle whatever life brings. We fear the future because we don't believe in our own strength. Building self-trust comes from reminding yourself of all the challenges you've already overcome. If you've survived your worst days, you are capable of handling what comes next. This inner confidence allows you to release fear and face life with courage. Ultimately, trusting the process is an act of liberation. When you stop clinging to control and instead flow with life, you experience a deep sense of freedom. You realize that fear cannot coexist with trust. The more you trust, the less power fear has over you. Freedom comes not from perfect circumstances, but from a peaceful heart that surrenders to the unfolding journey. When you let go and trust, you open yourself to miracles, growth, and possibilities far greater than anything you could have planned. Life becomes less about fear and more about faith. Faith in yourself, faith in the journey, and faith that everything is unfolding exactly as it should. See, detachment breaks fear's hold. Fear often grows out of attachment to people, possessions, outcomes, identities, or even beliefs. When we cling too tightly to something, the thought of losing it creates anxiety and insecurity. This attachment feeds fear, and fear, in turn, keeps us trapped in a cycle of suffering. To break free, we must practice detachment, a powerful spiritual principle that brings inner peace and freedom. Detachment does not mean you stop caring or become cold and indifferent. Many people misunderstand detachment, thinking it's about pushing things away or rejecting the world. In truth, detachment is about loving fully without clinging. It's the ability to engage deeply with life while remaining at peace if circumstances change. When you are detached, you enjoy people, experiences, and achievements, but you do not depend on them for your happiness or identity. At its core, attachment is a form of fear. When you attach to something, your mind begins to say, "I need this to be happy. If I lose it, I will suffer." This creates a fragile sense of security because the external world is always changing. Relationships evolve, possessions break or get lost, success fades, and even our own bodies age. When your happiness depends on something temporary, fear becomes a constant companion. You fear losing what you have or not getting what you want. For example, imagine someone deeply attached to their job title or career status. Their entire sense of self-worth is tied to their position. If they are promoted, they feel elated. If they are criticized or demoted, they feel crushed. This roller coaster of emotions is driven by attachment. Detachment, on the other hand, allows a person to work passionately and take pride in their achievements, while understanding that their value is not defined by external success. They can handle changes with grace rather than fear. The same principle applies to relationships. When love is mixed with attachment, it often turns into control, jealousy, or fear of abandonment. Instead of allowing others to be free, we try to hold on tightly, which only creates tension and pain. True love, rooted in detachment, says, "I care for you deeply, but I do not own you. I honor your freedom, and my happiness is not dependent on you staying the same." This kind of love is liberating for both people involved. Practicing detachment begins with awareness. Start by noticing where your fears come from. Ask yourself, what am I afraid of losing? What am I clinging to? Often the things we cling to are not inherently bad. Relationships, dreams, or possessions can bring joy. The problem arises when we mistake them for permanent sources of happiness. By recognizing the impermanent nature of all things, you loosen the grip of fear. One helpful tool in cultivating detachment is mindfulness meditation. When you sit quietly and observe your thoughts and emotions, you begin to see that they are temporary. A fear arises, stays for a while, and then fades. This practice teaches you that nothing lasts forever, not even your fears. With this understanding, you naturally begin to let go. Another way to practice detachment is by shifting your focus in. Instead of relying solely on external circumstances, cultivate inner strength and peace. When your happiness comes from within, external changes no longer shake you as deeply. You become like a tree with strong roots. No matter how strong the winds of life blow, you remain grounded. Detachment is not a one-time achievement, but an ongoing journey. There will be times when old attachments resurface and fear tries to take hold again. This is normal. Each moment is an opportunity to practice letting go and returning to balance. When you master detachment, fear loses its power. You stop living in constant worry about what might happen, and you begin to experience life as it is. You become free to love, create, and give fully without the heavy weight of clinging. In this state of freedom, you discover that true security doesn't come from holding on, but from letting go. By practicing detachment, you realize a profound truth. Everything you need is already within you. External circumstances may change, but your inner peace remains steady. And when fear no longer controls you, you step into a life of genuine freedom, joy, and harmony. Seedling a fearless mind is a free mind. Fear is a natural emotion, but when it takes over the mind, it becomes a cage that limits our thoughts, actions, and potential. A fearful mind is constantly on edge, worried about what might go wrong, replaying past mistakes and imagining worst-case scenarios. It becomes trapped in a cycle of anxiety and self-doubt, unable to experience the present moment fully. In contrast, a fearless mind is a mind that has been liberated from these chains. It is calm, clear, and free, a powerful force for living authentically and joyfully. To understand why fear has such a strong grip on the mind, we must first recognize how it operates. Fear often disguises itself as protection. It whispers, "Don't take that risk, you might fail," or "Don't speak up, you might be judged." While fear pretends to keep us safe, it actually keeps us small. It convinces us to avoid discomfort and change, even if those very changes could lead to growth and happiness. Over time, the fearful mind becomes like a prison guard, keeping you locked away from opportunities, relationships, and experiences that could enrich your life. A fearless mind, on the other hand, is not reckless or ignorant of danger. It doesn't mean you never feel fear. Instead, it means that fear no longer controls you. You can feel fear and still act wisely and courageously. This inner freedom arises when you learn to observe fear without identifying with it. Rather than saying, "I am afraid," you begin to say, "There is fear in my mind right now." This small shift creates space between you and the emotion, allowing you to respond thoughtfully instead of reacting automatically. When your mind is fearless, you gain clarity. Fear clouds judgment by flooding your thoughts with what-ifs and worst-case scenarios. It makes small problems seem enormous and prevents you from seeing the bigger picture. A fearless mind sees reality as it is. It remains steady even when challenges arise. This clarity allows you to make better decisions and navigate life with wisdom and balance. Another powerful benefit of a fearless mind is authentic self-expression. Fear often silences the true self. It makes you hide parts of who you are because you worry about rejection, criticism, or failure. When you release fear, you no longer feel the need to wear masks or play roles to please others. You can speak your truth, pursue your passions, and live in alignment with your deepest values. This authenticity brings immense peace and fulfillment because you are no longer living for approval. You are simply being yourself. Cultivating a fearless mind begins with mindfulness and presence. When you focus on the present moment, fear naturally begins to fade. Fear feeds on the past and the future. It says, "I remember what happened before," or "What if it happens again?" By returning to the here and now through practices like meditation, deep breathing, or simply observing your surroundings, you quiet the mental noise that fuels. Another essential tool is self-compassion. Often fear is rooted in self-criticism and judgment. You may fear failure because you believe you won't be able to handle the shame or disappointment. By treating yourself with kindness, you create a safe inner space where fear no longer feels overwhelming. You learn to say, even if I fail, I will still love and support myself. You notice that fear may arise, but it no longer has the same power over you. It becomes like a passing cloud in the sky, present for a while, then drifting away. This is the essence of a fearless mind. It is not that fear disappears entirely, but that it no longer defines your reality. A fearless mind is a gateway to true freedom. When you are no longer ruled by fear, you are free to explore life fully. You can take risks, love deeply, dream boldly, and embrace change with open arms. You stop merely surviving and begin truly living. In this state of freedom, life becomes an adventure rather than a burden. Challenges become opportunities, and every moment is infused with possibility. In the end, a fearless mind is a free mind because it is unshackled from the illusions of fear. It sees the world clearly, lives authentically, and embraces life with courage and grace. This is the ultimate liberation, a state of being where peace, joy, and boundless potential flow naturally from within. Seedling.